Now, we're going to open it up to discussion. Obviously, this is a bumper crowd. I reckon there's at least 400 people in the room here. We've gone a little bit over time so far. That's all right. It's because we're passionate and angry about a very important local issue. But we do want to make sure that anyone who's got a question or needs clarification about the impacts of this proposal is able to have it answered. So I'm going to invite up John Warburton, the Deputy General Manager who we've already heard from, and Harjeet Atwal, who's one of our strategic planners at Council and also an excellent professional. And they're here to answer all of your questions. We're all going to remain up here on the stage because we've only got one microphone up the front. We've also got excellent council officers in the high-vis vests who'll be circulating with microphones. I'm going to try to get round to as many people as we can in the time we have left. Obviously, if you have a pertinent and important political point to make, that's great. But if you could try to be succinct so that the last person who gets to speak tonight also gets to ask their question or make their point, that would be greatly appreciated. So, who's first? I might start here and work my way backwards and across. Yes, sir.
Hello. I think I've got the microphone up here. Over here. Good evening.
Sorry, sir. No. I'm going to chair the meeting. I've gone this side with this gentleman here. I'll make sure I get to you.
Hi there. Just quickly, I was wondering if you could give us a general idea of how much profit is sought to be made from a development this size, and approximately how does that compare with the sort of profit that would be made under the original Sydenham Bankstown proposal, and compare that to the council's development control plan?
Yeah, so the question is in relation to how much profit could be realised from this particular development in terms of the land. This is a very large site. It's a very large increase in FSR, 0.95 to 3.15. It's hard to say because there hasn't been a full valuation done on this. It's probably too early to say. What we can say is that in terms of the scale of development, it could cost us somewhere between $500 and $1 million and $1 billion to build. And if you imagine the values of 2,600 units at current market prices, you can sort of do the back of the envelope calculations to imagine that as zoned industrial as it is at the moment versus what you would get if you sold 2,600 units plus 17,000 square metres. So the profit would obviously be in the hundreds of millions, but we can't really give a precise number.
And I might point out that I did invite Mirvac and the property owners to come along and address the meeting tonight. I received a letter from them in the last couple of days explaining that they were intending to do very good community consultation with people in Marrickville, but they couldn't make it along to speak to you this evening. So obviously that's a standing invitation. When Mirvac's ready to come and talk to the people who their proposal will impact on, we'll put on another meeting at any other time. Down here, yes sir.
My name's Justin Maguire. I live in Carey Street. Two questions, or two parts to the question. First thing is, what will it take to do a proper master plan for the area instead of allowing these cowboys to go out piecemeal? Why can't this be integrated and properly developed?
Good evening. To do a proper master plan, we'll need to do a precinct-wide master plan down in Carrington Road, and we are looking to do that as part of this planning proposal. We have asked the proponent to put some feedback into the establishing master plan and associated with other property owners down there as well, and council will be doing a peer review of that and undertaking their own assessment and engaging independent consultants to allow for a master plan to be established.
Thank you for that. Next question. Yes, gentleman down the back in the blue shirt.
Colin Hesse, Marrickville Greens councillor. First of all, I think it's good to be very clear. The Greens stand with the community that we represent and that I actually live in, opposing this development. My personal view is this has no merit at all. It should be completely opposed. Secondly, I think it's very, very important that we recall that this is not just in a flood zone, but by 2100, when our grandchildren are around, it will be underwater with sea level rise due to global warming. This is not the place we put this. 5,000 extra people are already slated for the old Marrickville LGA. We've already done the heavy lifting under the last local environment plan. What we need is a complete review of the planning process in New South Wales. As we heard at the beginning of the night from our council officer, the planning process is stacked against us, and that is one of the key problems we face from council. But I know that with your support we'll do the best we can. But what's even more important is for you as residents to have your say. We've heard what the state government's vision, if you bear with me please, Mr Mayor, you've had your go, that the residents' say is what is very important. We've heard
I'm trying to make sure they get one, Colin. We're elected representatives, so we get to vote on it.
And
if you could wind up.
Yep. Residents have had what is important for us to have a say, for councillors to be heard, you have to have a say first. And what we need to know is what your vision for Marrickville is. Not what the state government's vision for Marrickville is, not what Mirvac's vision for Marrickville is, but what your vision for is. And I'll finish on this, because whatever we politicians might have to say means doodly squat without your support and your active involvement in it. Because whatever I might gas bag on about, or the Mayor might gas bag on about, means nothing. It's what you say which gives whatever we say weight. So say it strong and say it loud and say no.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hesse. I would never accuse you of gas bagging. I always listen to your speeches carefully. The woman just down here. Just wait for the microphone so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
My name's Pearl. Now, this community is up against Mirvac, who is, of course, as you said, a big developer. Now, that big developer has access to the decision makers. So decision makers being Lucy Turnbull, the District Commissioner Maria Atkinson and Anthony Roberts. So what I am seeking from the 4 politicians in the room, including the chap at the back, is to get those decision makers down into our community to show them what our issues are. So I'm seeking your commitment for us to do that.
Absolutely. Let's commit to coming back here in a few weeks' time with an invitation extended to the Planning Minister, Anthony Roberts, to the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, and to representatives from Mirvac to come and front the people whose lives are about to impact upon. I will come to that side. I just want to make sure we've covered off on this side. Anyone else over here who's got a question they'd like to ask? If not, we'll move across. Yes, to the woman in the tan jacket. Sorry, my eyesight's very bad, otherwise I would have recognised Councillor Hesse before.
Thank you. My name's Jackie, and we've spoken about the need for the community to speak up against Mirvac. We know how huge they are, how massive they are, and we've heard about the Marrickville Hospital development and them reneging on some of the plan requirements. So there's an opportunity for all of us to put submissions in on this. The submissions close on their Section 96 proposal to have ratepayers pay for the landscaping that was agreed originally, to the stormwater works that need doing that was agreed originally, and to the electrical wiring being put underground that was agreed originally, which Mirvac say they can't afford. So please, show them what we're made of. You can get a submission in by Tuesday next week. They can't push us around. We're Marrickville, not Mirvacville.
Well said. Okay, I've got the woman down here in the blue.
Thanks. I just have 2 questions I'd like clarification on. I actually live across the river on Undercliff side, so it will really impact me even though I'm not right in Marrickville itself, and I do some work at Ferncourt. My question is one to do with the rezoning. What impact can we have as a community to that decision making to do with, my understanding is the council has less powers now than they used to have. It is really a lot now with the state planning people that we have to be able to impact, and what impact can we actually have to stop the rezoning taking place?
I want to make one political point before handing over to the officers on this. It's very clear that this is the practical consequence of the government's Sydenham to Bankstown strategy. So the strategy says let's have 8,000 new units across Sydenham, Marrickville and Dulwich Hill. What it means in practice is that developers like Mirvac get the green light and that they know they can circumvent the council and the local community and go straight to the Department of Planning, and that's what we're opposed to.
That's right, but that's what's happening, so what can we do about it?
Yeah, but I will ask the council officers to explain exactly where we're up to in both the process of the Sydenham to Bankstown strategy and assessing this proposal.
I will speak to the Carrington Road proposal first. It's a planning proposal. In a planning proposal process, the first port of call is for a proponent to lodge an application to council, and it's council's job to do a thorough assessment of the proposal in accordance with the strategic planning policies that are being released by state government. And in that process, what we do is do an assessment, like we've done here, a preliminary assessment, and then we go back to the proponent and advise them of what we think is suitable, or what revisions or what additional information we need to progress the planning proposal. Now, once that occurs, once they come back, then council officers do an assessment and inform the elected councillors of should we proceed to the Department of Planning to get what's called a gateway determination. And that gives the green light for us to then go to community consultation. And at that point, you have your say. And I highly recommend everyone put in a submission if we get to that point. There's not a given that if we get to that point at this stage. It's very early on in the process. And yes, as previously mentioned tonight, that the proponent has the opportunity to bypass council if they choose. If they feel after 90 days of lodging their planning proposal application, they don't feel that council is going to support or work with them on the planning proposal, they can bypass council and go to the Department of Planning. At that point, even if they do bypass council and go to the Department of Planning, you will get an opportunity to have community consultation on that and have a say as well.
If we know about it.
Yes, you will know about that. Yes, there will be letters, drops and public meetings and so forth held to inform you about that.
Okay.
In regards to the Sydenham to Bankstown strategy, right now the submission period has closed. However, council, West Council did receive an extension to put in the submission by the end of October. And we are in the process of finalising the submission, and we are putting it to the Department of Planning. As far as I understand, the Department of Planning received over 2,000 submissions, and majority of them were from Marrickville and Dulwich Hill, and they're going through the submissions and considering them.
So my other question is to do with schools. Assuming that there's, over 2,000 apartments, if you had one child in each of those apartments that needs a school, you're talking about 2,000 children. And how can it be approved, like, there's nowhere for them to go to school? Like,
so part of that is that there will be requirements in the Sydenham to Bankstown corridor as a whole, infrastructure contributions required to be paid, state infrastructure contributions that will contribute to facilities such as schools, the road networks, regional road networks. That's part of it, and this is also going to be included as part of that. So that's how, I guess, they'd be responding to schools.
They can provide a contribution, but there's no grounds. Anyway,
yeah, and
thank you for your time.
Can I also make the point that the view of the council is the government has a responsibility to provide schools, hospitals and social infrastructure regardless of developer contributions. That's what we pay our taxes for. And developer contributions are meant to pay for the open space and the recreation facilities that go along with residential development. So we don't accept that position either. Now, I've got a few questions down here. I've got the woman just here who's adjacent to the council officer, and then I'll come down the back. Yes?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I've been very encouraged by what I've heard tonight. I guess I'm quite curious from the council's point of view. Do you have sufficient staff in place to really manage a robust and long-term campaign, which is what us as a community really need to have behind us? I think that, I have no idea, this is just a really authentic question, because I know what the community has to do is really hard, and we're going to need motivated and available council staff to really keep us going and being able to actually do this. And certainly you've got a really huge job with all the consultations, but if we really want to make a difference, I really feel like that, I don't know, that we probably council may need a few more people.
It's a really important point that you've made. I'm going to ask the Deputy General Manager to address it.
Yeah, so the question is about staffing, and the reality is with the Sydenham to Bankstown, with the numerous planning proposals, there is a huge amount of pressure put on council staff to respond to each one of these proposals. Every single one of them has to be examined in incredibly fine detail. The devil is always in the detail, and you need to look at them very, very closely. Our staff are absolutely at breaking point trying to manage all this, and we're working incredibly hard. I have one staff member dealing with one particular issue who hasn't had a day off in the last 3 weeks, and that's just, and unfortunately the staff are very dedicated, but it is putting a lot of pressure on the council.
Okay, we've got the gentleman down the back in the yellow shirt who's had his hand up for a very long time, right down the back, standing at the back of the room.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I'd like to suggest or propose that all the political groups, parties, whatever, acknowledge that this, as well as being a developmental and a political and a commercial problem, it's also a structural problem. I'm not trying to have a particular go at any party, but it's only a few years ago that 27 community groups demonstrated against the death of democracy and planning in Part 3A. So this is a structural issue that affects all of us. And the second thing is that the permission giving of developments, particularly of this kind, we get quite rightly caught up with the detail of a particular development, but it's the rezoning itself that strikes me as rather similar to giving a mining licence, except in this case it's mining the sky rather than the ground, in effect, in real terms, actually blue sky mining. And structurally, can't that be looked at in the same light as a mining application?
Thank you, sir. I've got the gentleman in the black just here, and then the gentleman with the blue shirt who's been waiting for a while. There do seem to be lots of gentlemen. We'd like to have some gender equity here. If there are women who'd like to ask questions, I'll come to you.
Have I got it here?
I meant the gentleman behind you, sir.
Hi there, my name's John Sutton. I live about 200 metres away from this development, and it's a truly atrocious situation that's going to destroy our community. I think Anthony Albanese told us tonight about perhaps Mirvac don't understand the seriousness or the grit of the people of Marrickville. I want to make a suggestion. We should invite representatives of Mirvac to come and address a public meeting, whether it's 3 weeks or, I don't care, give them 6 weeks, give them plenty of time. But if they refuse to come and address the people of Marrickville, what we should do, here's a suggestion, is the 400 people here tonight should gather outside the gates of the Mirvac project up on Marrickville Road. And I would very much hope that our elected representatives, we've heard of them all tonight, I'd hope they would all speak to us outside the gates of that project. If it takes an hour, 2 hours, if a whole lot of trucks are turned away because Mirvac gets a sense of how irate and how angry we are while we listen to our elected representatives, that might be a little foretaste of what they are tackling if they go ahead with this monstrosity. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Just before I go to the gentleman down the back in the blue shirt.
I've got it over here, Darcy. Peter Rowley from the Sydenham to Bankstown Alliance. Could I just have a quick
Sorry,
word?
just before
Peter Rowley from the
sorry,
Sydenham
sir.
to Bankstown.
Just before I go down the back to the gentleman in the blue shirt, I'd also like to acknowledge we have representatives here tonight from the Marrickville Chamber of Commerce, representing the businesses in Marrickville Road and Illawarra Road, and I want to express our solidarity with them on this issue. Could you give them a round of applause as well, please?
And the Sydenham to Bankstown Alliance.
Got the gentleman in the blue shirt, and then I'll come to you, sir. Yes, no need to interject, I'll get to you.
Nick Rawson, resident of South Marrickville. First of all, I think it's very important. We should congratulate the new Inner West Council for calling this meeting. It's a good meeting. We can see the mood of the people of Marrickville here tonight. People are very angry, and there's good reason to be very angry. Many people have discussed the reasons why. I think we also need to congratulate the State Labor Party for the position that they've taken tonight. I'm not a member of the Labor Party, but they do need to be congratulated. It's very positive that they are opposing this development. And not only that they are opposing this development, but that they are making sounds to oppose the Sydenham to Bankstown development strategy. But let me say to everybody at this meeting, the basis of our opposition to these developments, not only in Carrington Road, but all the way from Sydenham to Bankstown, all over this city, where the interests of ordinary people are being ignored by the big developers and the state government. The basis of our opposition is our own organisation. I urge every person at this meeting tonight, do not leave the meeting without leaving your details with the local groups. Save Marrickville South, Save Dully. It's very important that we get organised. This is the start of our fight. Carrington Road is not going to be the end, and we need to get organised. This is a state government-led process, but
Sir,
this is
I'd
also
never like
a
to
state
interrupt good
government.
oratory,
I won't
but
be
did you
long.
have a question?
I won't be long. This is also a state government which is politically vulnerable. We've seen how they've backflipped on council amalgamations because people were opposed to it. We can make them backflip on the Sydenham to Bankstown Alliance development proposals as well. I've actually got two motions to move to the meeting tonight with the permission of the chair. The first motion is that...
I'm sorry. I've got multiple people. We're
I
meant to
won't be
finish
long.
in 5
I
minutes.
won't be long. I'm sure
sorry,
that
sir.
the people here at this meeting have the right...
We've got many people who'd like to ask questions and speak.
Okay.
I'm happy to come back to you, sir,
Please.
at the conclusion of the meeting, but I don't want to cut other people off. You've spoken for about 5 minutes. I'm happy to come back to you at the end. The gentleman with the black coat.
We want motions tonight. We want some decisions at this meeting, not just the ideas of the leaders.
Yep, and it's a democratic principle that everyone's heard, so we'll go to the gentleman with the black coat.
Yeah, thank you. Look, my name is Peter Olive. I'm the spokesperson for the Sydenham to Bankstown Alliance. We have been working on this campaign for some years now, and it's absolutely fantastic to see so many people here tonight. Because I am in the Alliance, we have a broader perspective than just Carrington Road. We understand that Carrington Road is obviously an incredible expansion on what they're proposing for development along the corridor. But there is, in tandem with the overdevelopment, the train line. And I've always thought that if the train line goes ahead, then we'll get the development, and if the development goes ahead, then we'll get the train line. And I think the opposite is the case. If we don't get the train line, then we have a chance of not getting the development. And I was at the meeting last night at Macquarie Street when Michael Daly made that announcement, and I was incredibly heartened by that he said we will shred the planning policies along the Sydenham to Bankstown urban corridor. But what I would like to hear the Labor Party say and do is that they will cancel any of the contracts that relate to the metro from Sydenham to Bankstown. Or at the very least, if the state government is sneaky enough to be able to have them signed prior to the election in 2019, that they will seriously amend them so that we don't get the metro down this corridor. Because you can be sure as sure can be that if you get that metro, you will be getting that development. It's that simple. So there are two very important dates that I would ask you to keep in mind. One is the state election in March 2019, and the other relates to the environmental impact statement that's currently calling for submissions regarding the metro, which closes on November the 8th. So whilst it's a political struggle, while we need to take it up to the state government politically, because that's how the only way I think we can win.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
think
Olive.
it is.
It's a great
yes,
speech.
I think it is important to get submissions into that environmental impact statement process.
Now,
Thank you.
as chair of the meeting, I just want to make this point. People are seeping out at a very rapid pace. We've been going for an hour and a half. This is the very start of what will be a long and difficult campaign. And the truth is, if you go longer than an hour and a half at your first meeting, about half as many people come back the next time. So I want to make sure that we're concise, that this is run well, that people are encouraged to come back. So I'm going to take a couple more questions. Then I'll come back to the gentleman who wants to move his motion for whoever's left in the room at the end of that, and then we'll conclude the meeting. The woman down the back in the white shirt.
Hi, Karen Campbell from Save Dully. We're established with the Sydenham to Bankstown renewal strategy, and we've fought for years, and it's incredible. We've had this meeting a few months ago in terms of that corridor strategy, and the room was overflowing, and it's incredible now that we're going through the same things. And so I'd just like to tell you about experience. The submissions, we, as you heard, Dulwich Hill put in the most submissions regarding that renewal strategy. They then brought out the 2017, and it is worse. We now are going through those submissions, and we find that 300 are bogus, put in by developers, real estate agents. We have consultation with the planning department. Consultation.
I'm sorry
is
to cut
them
you off,
telling
but
us
as you can
what
see,
to do, not having conversation.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but as you can see, more than half the room is left. I'm going to take that as an indication that people would like the meeting to conclude. And thank you all very much for being here tonight. Declare the meeting closed.